The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Good morning to all, and to all, a good morning. I'm here on this Wednesday morning because this is the biggest day of the offseason for the Commanders. Let me rephrase that. This is the biggest day of the draft offseason and the draft process for the Commanders. The only day that will supersede today for the Commanders is the actual start of the 2026 NFL Draft, which will take place later on next month. The Ohio State Pro Day is today, and let's be honest with ourselves. There's probably a 75 to 80% chance that the Commanders' first-round pick at 7th overall is going to come from one of these players that they will be in either contact or watching perform on-field drills today, or both, at the Ohio State Pro Day. Who are we kidding? All right. When we talk about the top 10 of this particular draft, it is going to be littered with Ohio State Buckeyes, a bunch of defenders, maybe even a receiver. They're loaded. They're going to be well represented in the top 10. And I think one of them will end up being a Washington Commander at 7th overall. So this is a pretty significant day. And if you needed any proof of how significant of a day it is, this from Ryan Fowler on X, who covers this draft process extensively. He's the guy that we're getting a ton of our information from as far as these top 30 visits. He's all over this, covers the entire league, covers college football extensively. He writes, source, Commanders GM Adam Peters, assistant GM Lance Newmark, head coach Dan Quinn, offensive coordinator David Blau, defensive coordinator Durante Jones will all, A-L-L, all be in attendance for Ohio State's Pro Day tomorrow, which is today. All hands on deck for Washington. If you needed any proof that this was the most important Pro Day of the offseason for the Commanders, there it is. I don't think they've all been in attendance at a singular Pro Day this entire offseason. This guy may have gone, two of them may have gone, even three of them may have attended a Pro Day together. But all five of them, GM, assistant GM, head coach, both coordinators, all in attendance, all descending upon Columbus today for this Ohio State Pro Day. It just spells out the significance of this Pro Day and what it signifies for the Commanders, who sit there with no second-round pick as currently constituted, drafting 7th overall, needing to hit a home run with this pick, looking to bolster their roster, whether it's offensively or defensively. This is more likely than not, as I said already, and I'm going to say it again because it bears repeating, the likelihood is that the 7th pick overall that will be submitted by the Commanders, should they not trade up or back, assuming that they stick and pick at 7th overall, the likelihood is that player will be an Ohio State Buckeye. That is the likelihood. With that said, let's preview what we should be expecting for today. I'm going to come back later on this afternoon after this Pro Day has been concluded. We get all the feedback from people that were in attendance. I'm going to not only give you the overview of what the day was like, who fared well, who tested well, who did what, that sort of thing, all that information. I'll try to gather as much of it as I can, bring that to you. But I'm also going to give you a breakdown of all of the players that will be in the discussion at 7th overall. I've had a chance to watch all of them. God, Jeremiah Smith is good. I know he has nothing to do with this conversation, and I shouldn't be talking to you about a minor right now. God, he's good. Watching Ohio State, watching all the film, man, he is going to be in the conversation for the number 1 overall pick. He won't go 1 overall because receivers don't get picked number 1 overall in the NFL draft. If Calvin Johnson couldn't get the number 1 overall pick in a draft where, I think Jamarcus Russell, if I'm not mistaken, was in that draft. I think. But if he couldn't go number 1 overall, I don't think you're going to see a number 1 overall wide receiver. And with all the quarterbacks that are supposed to be coming out next year, he definitely won't be one, but he might be pound for pound the best player in the draft next year. Man, is he good. Jeez Louise. I'm going to give you a breakdown of all these players. I've had a chance to watch Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, Carnell Tate. I have a new appreciation for Carnell Tate. And I'll tell you exactly why Carnell Tate gets pushed down, why people don't, love Carnell Tate, or, he's not the number 1 on most people's board in terms of the receiver position. We'll talk about that. He's a damn good football player. So we'll talk about Caleb Downs and all of these guys. I'll give you a breakdown and a synopsis of what I feel about all those players, sort of like what I did with Ruben Bain yesterday after his pro day concluded. I'll give you that later on this evening. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to have a very busy day here on the Louie T Network, specifically talking about this Ohio State pro day. That said, let's preview this pro day and give you what you should be expecting to hear as you keep tabs on what's going on with the Ohio State pro day today. So the first thing that I think you should be looking for today is Caleb Downs, right? The beauty of going out and doing what Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles and Lorenzo Styles Jr. all did at the combine is they went out, performed, tested, did on-field drills. They technically don't have to do a damn thing if they don't want to. And if I were them, that was the whole purpose of doing it at the combine, so I don't have to do it again at the pro day. I get to chill today. I get to chill, support my teammates, root them on, talk to these evaluators. I just get to spend the day being me, right? Selling myself to these general managers, coaches, etc. Right? I don't have to do anything. I show up in my Ohio State warm up and I just walk around, greet people, dap up my teammates, root them on, and talk to all of these people that are going to be in attendance. If I'm Arvell Reese, I'm Sonny Styles, I'm Lorenzo Styles, all the guys that performed at the combine, today should be a day for you to just take it all in. It's over. Process is done, other than these top 30 visits that are left to be had. The hay's in the barn, as they say. But for guys like Caden McDonald, Carnell Tate, especially Carnell Tate, and I shouldn't say just especially Carnell Tate, also Caleb Downs, this is a big day. This is a big day. For those 3 individuals in particular, and there are other guys that are there, Donaldson, the running back, Max Clare, I think he's going to probably do some on-the-field drills is my guess. There's some other guys there that are going to probably need to showcase what they can do. But ultimately, the big names are Caleb Downs and Carnell Tate. Caden McDonald in the periphery. But those are the 2 guys, if you're a Commanders fan, that all eyes are on them. Because for Carnell Tate in particular, he ran a 40. It didn't go well. There was a lot of scuttlebutt as to whether or not it was a 4.54, 4.53, or was it sub 4.5? Hand times were 4.48. Adam Schefter wanted to make it abundantly clear. Somebody's agent got in his ear, right, and told him, hey, it was a 4.48. You should make sure that this information is corrected. At this point, don't really care. what the time is, because we're going to get some range time from Carnell Tate if he decides to run again, and he may not. He might have decided, to hell with the 40. I'm just going to show these guys what I can do, because he didn't do any on-field drills. He ran his 40, and then he was done, right? So we're going to see Carnell Tate out there catching a football for this pro day. Will he run his 40? Will he jump? Will he do all the testing? That's going to be interesting to see if he decides to do that again, right? He may decide to bypass that. I've already done that. You guys can debate about my speed, whatever. If you're fast and you think you're faster than the time you ran in Indy, then run again if you're Carnell Tate. Like, all you need to do, this is what the pro day is for. All you need to do is go out there and have one person clock you at 4.46. And then that's what everybody's going to go with. You know, several people had him clock, because the people that are covering this event, they don't want to see these guys fail. Okay. They want to promote the best time that they heard. Oh, someone had him clocked as high as 4.37. That's what they're going to say if someone had a 4.37 hand time. They don't want to talk about the guy running a 4.55. You know, if he ran a 4.37, somebody had him clocked at a 4.37, somebody else had him clocked at a 4.39, they're going to talk about that. They're not going to talk about somebody that had him clocked at 4.47, right? So all he's got to do is go out there and run, you know, a 4.46 or whatever. Someone's just got to hand time him at a 4.47, and he's good. That's the time everybody's going to run with. He's going to be a sub 4.5 guy. We can move on, turn that page. And the tape suggests that he runs sub 4.5. He's not a blazer by any stretch of the imagination. We'll talk about that later on this evening. But he's plenty fast. But he's going to go out, showcase his skills. He's a guy that's, you know, looking to really show that he should be at the top of that wide receiver conversation. And really right now, if we're being honest, with the wide receiver position in particular, there's no alpha. There's no consensus number one wide receiver. I showed you a list yesterday of Chris Sims's top receivers in this draft. He has Denzel Boston, the wide receiver out of Washington, as his number one wide receiver. I told you I looked at the ESPN, you know, guys, the Mel Kipers, the Field Yates, all of those guys. They each had a different receiver as their number one guy, and their top three was all different. None of them had the same top three. And so there is no consensus. Carnell Tate has an opportunity to make his case for being the number one wide receiver in this draft. He needs to test well, though, if he's going to go and do that again. The on-the-field stuff is going to be clean with him. I got no doubts about that. If he really wants to turn heads, he's got to do something that I don't think he's capable of doing, and that's just absolutely crush the athletic testing if he decides to do that. We'll see if he decides to do that or not. Another guy that could really benefit from huge athletic testing numbers is Caleb Downs. You know, there are certain guys that they surprise you with their times, with their testing numbers, because the tape suggests that it's going to look a certain way. And then when it looks totally different, a wise man once told us, fast guys run fast, slow guys run slow. It's only a story when the opposite happens. By no means is Caleb Downs slow. And if he runs his 40 today, and again, I am to assume that that's what he's going to do. If he decides to run his 40 today, I don't expect it to be sub 4.5, but I do expect him to run a 4.5 and some change, right? If he somehow is able to shed this label of, oh, he's going to be, you know, he's not going to test athletically all that well. If he's able to go out and run a 4.48, that's plenty fast for a guy with his processing speed and his play demeanor, his IQ. He goes out and runs anything sub 4.5, and it just reinforces what a lot of people are already saying, sans the workout. He hasn't even worked out yet, and most people are saying, pound for pound in this draft, Caleb Downs is the best player in the draft. His teammates may have stolen the show at the combine. All of the, conversations leaving Indy defensively at Ohio State were about Sonny Styles. Hell, even his brother Lorenzo lit up the combine as well. And of course, Arvell Reese. Those guys murdered the combine. But the tape suggests that when you strip all of that stuff down, the best player on the field defensively for Ohio State is Caleb Downs. Well, this is his chance to remind everyone that that is in fact the case by going out and showcasing his skills. So I expect him to have an excellent field workout. That's a given. I don't worry about Caleb Downs in that regard. The question is, if he decides to test athletically, jump, broad, vert, if he decides to run the 40, what does that look like? That's the difference between him potentially being a top 10 pick or falling all the way to 15, like we've talked about in some of these mock drafts, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and somewhere in that neighborhood, and falling out of the top, 10 altogether. Because we know the safety position is one that is not valued to begin with. It's not one that you see a lot of teams spend a high-level draft pick on. It just isn't. Nick Amanawari was one of the biggest freaks we've seen at the safety position in quite some time, and he still didn't go to the second round, and we saw the impact he had on the Super Bowl defending champion Seattle Seahawks in his rookie campaign. He was as big a piece of that defense as anybody this past year. And he tested off the charts. And he was an afterthought. Now, he didn't come with the same accolades and, fanfare as Caleb Downs, will be coming into this draft with. But we saw the talent from Nick Amanawari, and then he blew up the combine, and he still didn't warrant a first-round pick. So Caleb Downs is already fighting an uphill battle because of the position that he plays. But he can put all that to rest if he goes out and he blazes the combine. And there's an off chance that he could do that. Most people, including myself, don't expect that. I'm expecting him to run a 4.54, 4.55 40. And that's plenty fast. Plenty fast. Again, we get caught up so often in these crazy times because the times get faster and faster every year. These guys get more athletic. They get stronger. They get faster. They jump higher. They jump further. And we get so enamored with some of these times that we forget 4.5 is plenty fast for a safety, just like it's plenty fast for a linebacker, just like it's plenty fast for a tight end. Hell, it's really fast for those positions. But because you see the outlier, the Sonny Styles, the Arvell Reese, the Kenyon Sadiq, they skew the number and they warp the way that people look at these times, and then you think guys are slow. 4.5 is fast for a safety. Especially when you have the processing speed and the IQ of a Caleb Downs. It is plenty fast. So he's going to have himself, I think, an excellent day. He's going to have himself a good day. Can he make it excellent? By testing athletically and exceeding the expectations that I think many, including myself, have set for him, which is he's not going to run that fast. He's not going to jump that high. He's not this tremendous athlete. He's a good athlete. He's not a great athlete. We're going to find out today. If he's a great athlete, it's going to be hard to keep this guy out of the top 10. It's going to be hard to keep this guy out of the top 10. So And then Caden McDonald, the defensive tackle, didn't do anything at the combine. I assume he's going to have a field workout. The Commanders, as we talked about yesterday, clearly are interested, right? Top 30 visit. Caden McDonald is going to be, in Washington at some point, meeting with this team. This is of all of the top 30 visits that have been reported to this point, his is the most head scratching because, again, I'm assuming his is strictly in the event, and you have to be prepared. And Adam Peters has talked about this already. His is strictly in the event that the Commanders trade back and pick up additional picks. If you end up in that window where you have the second round pick, he could potentially be an option there if you're able to move back and somehow pick up more picks, right? Because I don't envision him being available at 71. Furthermore, I don't anticipate the Commanders drafting a defensive tackle. I've already said this. There are a lot of positions that this team can mull over taking in the first 3 rounds, right? The first 2 days of the draft. Defensive tackle seems to be one that's a little bit further back. I'm not saying that they don't address defensive tackle at any point in this draft. Just doesn't feel like defensive tackle is one that you need to really concern yourself with until you get to day 3. Whether that's your 5th rounder, one of your 2 6th-round selections, or your 7th-round pick. To me, you've got enough defensive tackles, and you have enough of them on the roster even next year to be able to feel comfortable not doing anything right now, right? You're going to have 3 defensive tackles that are under contract going into next season. Now, again, could you get out of the Javon Kinlaw deal next year? Sure. You absolutely could. There are no guarantees in that final year of his 3-year deal that he signed, but I don't see them looking to do that, right? You're going to have Kinlaw. You're going to have Johnny Newton going into the final year of his rookie contract, and you're going to have Tim Settle, who just signed a 3-year deal going into the 2nd year of the 3-year contract. So you're going to have 3 defensive tackles under contract going into next season. Who knows what's going to happen with Deron Payne, and some of the other guys that they have on the roster, Shy Tuttle, Ricky Barber, whatever the case may be. But there's enough depth that you don't have to force the issue this year. As a matter of fact, it would be somewhat counterproductive to draft a defensive tackle just because you would have to then create a roster spot for said defensive tackle. Now, again, if that's the best player on the board when you get to the 5th round, the 6th round, whatever, take him. That's a great problem to have. Shy Tuttle does not have to make this roster, right? Like, no one is out here clamoring for Shy City. Shot. So you say Shy Tuttle. No one's clamoring for him to have to be on this roster. The money they signed him to is not one that requires him to be a member of this football team when this roster is finalized in late August, early September. So if that's the case, knock yourself out in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. That doesn't feel like something that's going to happen in the 1st or 3rd round. And if you trade back, even if you trade back, it doesn't feel like something that you should be entertaining even in the 2nd round, right? There are more pressing needs: receiver, corner, center. There are other things that you could be looking to do with extra picks that this team may acquire in a trade back scenario. So Caden McDonald feels like them just doing due diligence in the event that somehow, some way they end up in a position where he's available. They've done the work and they're prepared to take him. I doubt that he ends up being a Commander, like I said already. But anyway, he's going to have himself a field workout as well. And he's known for being more of a run-stopping defensive tackle. We'll see what he is able to do. But the full gamut of Ohio State athletes will be on display. Again, I don't anticipate anything from Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, Lorenzo Styles. Maybe Lorenzo gets out there again, try to, remind people who may have forgotten about his Indy performance, what he's capable of. I think we're coming away with one of these Styles brothers, right? One of these Styles boys, because Lorenzo in a deep safety draft class is going to be an afterthought. This is a guy that made the transition over from the offensive side of the football as an athlete to the defensive side. So he's a late bloomer, still learning the position. But with that kind of speed, and worst case scenario, he's your new Percy Butler, right? A guy that is a dynamo on special teams, but why the hell can't we find a way to get him on the field in a defensive capacity? I could see them spending a 5th round pick, 6th round pick. Somehow he gets to the 7th round. I could see Lorenzo Styles Jr. being a Commander, right? So don't count him out as a guy that could end up being here in Washington as well. So this is an intriguing pro day for all of the reasons that I just mentioned. For any other reasons you could be thinking of, we're not in the tight end market, but they've got a couple of tight ends, a blocking tight end, Kazmarek, and pass catching tight end and Max Clare that are probably going to be out there. My guess is catching some passes, showcasing their skills. Ohio State's loaded every year. This year it's a bit more important for us as fans because of where we are in the draft and how many guys that we are considering at that selection, 7th overall. I think the likelihood, and I've said this already twice, I'm saying it again, the likelihood is that our 7th overall selection in the 2026 drafts, assuming that the Commanders stick and pick, is going to more likely than not come from the Ohio State University. So this pro day, which is why the entire brass is in attendance today, will be in attendance. General Manager Adam Peters, Assistant General Manager Lance Newmark, Head Coach Dan Quinn, Offensive Coordinator David Blau, Defensive Coordinator Durante Jones. It doesn't get more important than that when all 5 of the most important decision makers when it comes to the draft are all in attendance at the same time at the same pro day. So I digress. Let's get to the comment section real quick, and then I'll get you guys out of here. Carter Crankenstein, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Carter Crankenstein writes, okay, Lou, the early bird catches the worm, huh? This is going to be a big day, right? So wanted to jump on early, inform you guys of why this is a significant day for us as Commanders fans. And then we're going to come back and we're going to double up, come back, break down the pro day, talk about what, like yesterday, for instance, the Miami pro day we talked about from the day before. The significance there was Keontae Scott, right? Like all the attention is on Ruben Bain. I already told y'all yesterday, I think his teammate, Akeem Mesidor, and again, he's 70 years old. Akeem Mesidor isn't going to be for everyone. But if you're talking about a polished, ready to go edge rusher that you drop into your system day one that can come in and get you 6.5, 7, possibly north of 7 sacks in his rookie season, you're talking about Akeem Mesidor. But everybody wants to talk about Ruben Bain. He's a polarizing figure in this draft. I talked about that. But the guy that stole the show at the Miami Pro Day was Keontae Scott. So much so, the Commanders added him to their top 30 visit list. We talked about this already, right? Keontae Scott was added right after that Pro Day. Because he was, and again, it's not like they didn't know about this kid. But to match up the speed and the athletic traits with the film, which was incredible, somebody could do that again today. And again, not like they don't already know about these Ohio State players, right? But that's what these pro days can do, man. I remember one year, I can't remember which year it was, but the Commanders ended up finding one of the players that they ultimately drafted by going to a pro day to watch another player. And this happens so often. You go to a pro day to watch one guy and you run into this other guy, like, this guy, I need to check this guy out. I need to go watch some film on this guy, right? Happens all the time. Who knows? That could happen here, right? It's a big pro day and everyone's going to be there. I'm starting to feel like we should go Delane if Love doesn't fall. He had an excellent workout Another guy, I just talked about Caleb Downs and how he can exceed expectation. Mansour Delane exceeded expectation, right? Most people didn't expect him to run in the 4.4s, let alone 4.3s, right? Which is what he was, clocked at. So Mansour Delane changed a lot of people's perception of what he is and what his ceiling could be in the NFL. I, for one, want to see what Caleb Downs does, if he decides to test athletically. Delane is very intriguing, and I've already told you that I feel like one of the first two selections, assuming that the Commanders don't trade back. If they trade back, all bets are off, because then you have a little bit more real estate, you have a little bit more draft capital to play around with, and so they could make a decision that kind of veers off the path of one of the first two picks will be a corner. Because if you trade back, that opens up a wealth of opportunities as to what you do with that pick. Let's say you trade back to 12, you're right in the neighborhood for a wide receiver at that point, right? You could be right in the neighborhood for Caleb Downs, like if you trade back and no one takes him. Again, assuming that you trade back, that means somebody's coming up to get a player. Who's the player that the team's coming up to get? Or who are you passing up on? I don't think this is a draft where teams are looking to come up. That's just my opinion. I don't think you're going to see, with no quarterbacks really available, with with most of the edge rushers probably off the board by 7. There's no elite wide receiver to the point where I got to go get this guy. There's no Malik Neighbors in this year's draft class. It's hard for me to envision a team saying, "Oh, I got to have this player," and us moving back, because the only player that I envision that potentially being is Jeremiah Love. But if he's there, unless we have no interest in taking him, we should be the ones taking him, not someone else coming up to take him. We should be the ones taking him. So if Delane is the pick, I wouldn't be upset at that, because I already told you I'm not comfortable with Mikey Samer still as my boundary corner. I can be okay with it out of necessity. If they're okay with it, I have no choice but to be okay with it. It's not my preference. Like I said, I don't hate Mikey on the boundary. I don't hate it. I don't love it either. I would love to add a guy like Mansour Delane opposite of Trey Amos outside. I would love to do that. My idea of an elite defense is the Houston Texans. They have 2 stud corners on the boundary, a wicked nickel, the best in football if you ask me, and then a ferocious pass rush. That's what I envision. And ball hawking safeties too. That's what I envision an elite defense looking like. We aren't close to that, because right now we don't have any ball hawking safeties. We don't have 2 elite corners or 2 really good corners. They have 2 elite corners in Houston, right? Like an elite 1 and an elite 2, not two elite 1s. They got an elite 1 in Derek Stingley Jr. and an elite 2, top of the market 2, and Lassiter. They have an elite nickel, right, in Jalen Petrie, one of the best in the business. And then their pass rush is second to none, with 2 stud double-digit sack getters on both sides in Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. Not to mention guys like Sheldon Rankins on the interior getting pressure and getting home as well. Kalen Bullock's at the safety position. Whatever the corners don't catch, he's catching. These guys are ridiculous. So I'd love to add a Mansour Delane. I'm trying to build a bully like that. I'll see what we have in Adafi Owe and Kaylavon Chason and, you know, Dorrance Armstrong. We'll see if we can somehow conjure up some sacks, you know, piece them together based off of the new and improved pass rush that we've built via free agency. Maybe Deron Payne comes to life. Maybe Johnny Newton comes to life in this new scheme. But adding a corner of that ilk would be huge for this defense, I believe. So I'm with you. I told you, there isn't much that this team could do wrong at 7. The only thing I don't want them to do at 7, that's a very, you know, distinct possibility, is draft Ruben Bain. I'm not interested in Ruben Bain at 7. Told you guys that yesterday. My fears were confirmed, right? Like, I don't hate him as a prospect. I think he could actually be really good. I just don't want to spend the 7th pick in the draft to find out. He may go on to be Aaron Donald, and we might have screwed the pooch like everyone else that passes on him in this draft. I don't think that's going to be the case. I'll be shocked if that ends up being the case. I keep hearing people throw out Aaron Donald. Don't throw out that man's name like that. Please don't do that. I beg of you. Aaron Donald, and again, when he was coming out, he was questioned. He was undersized, right? Aaron Donald was posting double-digit sacks at Pitt. He came into the league already like that. Ruben Bain ain't doing what Aaron Donald was doing at Pitt. Please don't put those two guys' names in the same conversation. They are not the same. Please don't do that. I'm all for Delane if Love isn't there. I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Like I said, it really, you can't go wrong at 7. We're in a great spot. Could have been better had we not beaten the Eagles, right? But we're in a really good spot, man. I feel great about where we are because we're going to come away with a really good football player. I feel like a really good football player with a high ceiling, with an extremely high ceiling. So, you know, we'll see what happens if they trade back. That means they didn't love the options that were available to them, or they love the idea of acquiring more. You know, they were more smitten with the idea of quantity over quality, or they feel like the quality is very similar. So let's get more quantity of that same quality, if that makes sense. I think there are about 7 to 10 guys that are different from everyone else in this draft. And then the rest, the next 30 to 50 prospects are you know, pretty much the same in terms of expected productivity at the NFL level, with where their ceilings are, what they could be, what they project as. I want to get one of those 7 to 10 guys that exist in this draft. We're in a position to do that. Mr. Rogers, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Uncle Jay, what it do, my guy? Says, Lou, I ain't even had my coffee yet. I know, man. This is not a normal spot for me, but this type of day warrants this type of activity, man. So here I am. All right. Here I am. Dijon DJ, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Lou, what's good, DJ? I may have missed it, but can we get a welcome back for Diami and Tim? But so excited for Chig this year. Yeah, I think I'm not sure if I definitely gave one to Tim. I don't think I gave one to Diami, but absolutely. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back, Diami. I told you I meant to give you guys a video on his presser. We heard from Jerome Ford. He had a press conference. Jeremy McNichols had a press conference, and Laramie Tunzel all spoke to the media. And then I was like, yeah, I don't care about that shit. y'all don't care about that. So I just said, yeah. But it was cool to hear Diami, speak. I did say this to you guys in passing the other day that he was humbled. He said he learned a lot in Jacksonville, but he was humbled. He really thought he was finna go out there and shine. He really thought the grass was greener out there. He was about to show everybody that, Washington didn't give him the opportunity that he felt like he should have had to be a dynamic receiver in this league. And so he thought he was going to go to Jacksonville and kill it. And he said he got injured. He kind of, delayed what he thought was the inevitable. Then other guys stepped up, and then he just became an afterthought. But you could tell he was happy to be back because he realizes ain't no place like home. He clicked his heels, and he just kept saying it over and over again. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home, because they don't love you like we love you, Diami. They don't love you like we love you, man. So I'm glad he's back, him and Tim. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to both of those dudes. And I'm looking forward to Act 2 being even more successful than Act number 1 for both of those guys here in Washington. Chig, I'm so excited. I think of all of the acquisitions this offseason to this point, he's the one that I think I'm the most excited for. He's the one that has the chance to move the needle the most, especially on the offensive side. We really haven't done much on the offensive side in the way of weapons for Jaden necessarily to this point. We've talked about the receiver position in particular ad nauseum this offseason. But Chig's development here and his ascension, if it happens, could be monumental for this offense. I mean, we've seen the impact of a dynamic pass-catching tight end in this league. If you just look across the landscape of the NFL, you look at the Chiefs and what Mahomes has been able to do. His right-hand man is Travis Kelce. You look at the Ravens and you look at Lamar Jackson, 2-time MVP winner. His right-hand man has been Mark Andrews, and he stayed with a 2-3 pack of tight ends. You go to Josh Allen, former MVP of the league. He stayed with a 2-pack at the tight end position, but he's throwing in Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. Like, you go around the league and you look at the best of the best. The only guy that doesn't have an elite tight end is Joe Burrow, and he got like 19 receivers to throw the football to. They keep him strapped at the receiver position. So it offsets the fact that they had Mike Gesicki for a couple years, though, and he was balling for them. But it offsets the fact you got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. You'd be hard-pressed to find a better 1-2 punch than those two on the field. So, again, when you look around the league, man, and you look at Detroit's offense and how prolific they've been, you see their tight end situation, and you just keep going across the league. Arizona, like, their offense isn't great, but McBride is like that, right? And so when you play Arizona, we got to stop Trey McBride or else. So I think Chig might be able to instill that type of fear. When you were game planning to stop Washington, the only players you had to concern yourself with, Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz, but for the reasons of in the red zone and on third downs and, fourth downs, things of that nature. Not, oh my God, this guy can, rip us apart from, a 5-yard catch and turn it into a 55-yard touchdown. It was more of, this is who Jaden likes to go to in critical situations. We got to key in on 86. But really, it was just Jaden and Terry. You take Terry away, and now Jaden's got to put on his do-it-yourself kit. He's got to pull out your do-it-yourself kit. And I think Chig is going to take so much pressure off of Jaden. Because, again, one of the biggest things that we've lacked here, and we still do, but Chig is going to help us out in that department, is the run after catch ability. Everything with this offense has been, you got to put it in somebody's hands, and then you got to do it again, and then you got to do it again, and then Jaden's got to do it again, and there can't be any mess ups. There can't be any batted balls. There can't be any wasted downs, because this offense isn't explosive enough to get you down the field and into the end zone in 6 plays. Because we don't have short fields, because we don't produce turnovers. And while we do have a dynamic return game, we're not forcing enough punts so that we can get opportunities for our punt returner to touch the football, right? So we're starting these drives with long fields in front of us, and it's taking us 12, 13, 14 plays to get into the end zone. And last year, the most deflating part, unlike 2024, where we went for it on 4th down and we capped off these drives with touchdowns, we were one of the more prolific offenses in terms of percentage of drives ending in points. Last year, we would go 12, 13 plays, and then like the Vikings game, right? Remember that drive, that opening drive? That shit was like 15 plays, and then we didn't convert on 4th down, and we got nothing. You know how many times we did that last year? Where we had these long drives and got nothing out of them? Chig is going to allow us to not have to go 13 plays, but because he took a 5-yard pass and gained 18 yards, now all of a sudden, a 13-play drive is a 7-play drive. I mean, you think about it. If you got a 90-yard drive in front of you, if you want a touchdown, you start your drive at the 10-yard line and you complete an 18-yard pass, that's 20% of the field that's in front of you. Like, a lot of people don't equate that. When you hear like chunk plays like McVay, he's not really looking to go over the top. If they can get over the top, great. But Sean McVay is looking to get that play action and take this 22-yard gain or this 17-yard gain. Because you know how big of a chunk of the field that is? Like 17 don't feel like a lot, but it's a huge amount. Think about it from this perspective. You start your drive at the 33-yard line, you get a 17-yard gain. You at midfield that quick. We've been lacking that in this offense. Everything is nickel and dime. 2 yards, 5 yards, 7 yards, 4 yards, 6 yards. Oh, there's a 12-yard gain. Hey, how about that? Everything we got to fight for, Chig is going to change that, man. That's why I'm excited. That's why I'm excited. Really excited. William Rogers Jr., been a member for 44 months. Salute to you. Who writes, I think it's Love, Styles, or Delane for them. I'd be happy with any one of those 3 players. I'd be elated, ecstatic for any one of those 3 players. Again, there isn't much you can do at 7 that's going to make me feel like we didn't maximize the pick. I think you could take your pick from any of 6 or 7 guys and I'd be thrilled. Arvell Reese, David Bailey, Jeremiah Love, Sonny Styles, Mansour Delane, Caleb Downs. Like, what did I just name? 6 guys? 6 or 7 guys? I don't know how many I just named, but I'd be thrilled with any of those guys. Any of them. Any of them. I'll be honest, having watched the receivers, I'm good. I really don't. Like, if they traded back and took a receiver, I'd be fine with it. At 7, the only way I'll be thrilled with a receiver, and I'll get into this a little bit later when we talk about the Ohio State players and I get into the receivers this week. But I'll throw out this caveat. The only way I'll be thrilled with the receiver is if we trade back. These receivers don't move me enough to where taking one at 7 makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. I'll just tell you that. Commander Hove. Hove. Did y'all see that Hove is doing 2 concerts on July 10th and 11th, I believe it is? And so it's the 30-year anniversary of Reasonable Doubt, his debut album, and it's the 25-year anniversary for The Blueprint, one of his best albums. I think his 3 best albums, and again, this is not MusicHead University, but eventually I'm going to get my life together and hopefully my tower gets fixed here shortly. I I've dropped it off at the shop, so we're making progress. But his top 3 albums to me are Reasonable Doubt, The Blueprint, and American Gangster. We could have a debate on what your top 3 are. I also love Volume 2 a lot. I think Volume 3 is extremely underrated. Anyway, you just jogged my memory by your name being Hove. But anyway, I digress. Look at me going off on a tangent. You know I can do that. Let me reel myself back in. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, 5 a.m. Lou. Damn, you must be on the left coast. Shout out to you. Listening to you on my way to work. Blessings. GM, good morning to you and yours. Hope your day goes splendidly. And I'm glad I was a part of getting your day started today. Really appreciate you. Dr. XO 247, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. You know what to do. Show Dr. XO some love. Welcome him with open arms. Welcome to the squad, Dr. XO. Glad to have you on board. You're just in time. This is a train that is just revving up and about to take off from the station. We got a hell of a season in front of us, and this is going to be a fun ride. This gives me 2024 vibes, what we're doing this year. It feels brand new. It feels like they've hit the reset button. They had to after the debacle that was 2025, and I am so excited about this upcoming season. So glad to have you be a part of the mob as we embark upon this journey. So that is the final comment. And that means it's time for me to glide to the side and allow you to get back to whatever it was you were doing before I rudely interrupted you this morning. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys a little bit later on this afternoon to kind of give you the nuts and bolts of what happened out in Columbus today and react to that, in addition to breaking down these players, right, that we will be considering at 7 for the Ohio State Buckeyes. I had a chance to watch Carnell Tate. I had a chance to watch Sonny Styles. I had a chance to watch Arvell Reese. I had a chance to watch Caleb Downs. I've got something to say about all those guys. You'll get that later on this evening and then some. Also, Commander Kings later on tonight as well to put the cherry on top of what is going to be a very jam-packed day. So looking forward to chopping it up with you guys later on today. Got one more comment here from the Commandalorian. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. The Commandalorian writes, I woke up, brushed my teeth, and washed my face. Get your mind right. He says, my boy Bane will set the bar for the T-Rex arms, but I definitely agree we need Love, Styles, Delane, or Bailey. Thanks for the breakfast, Luke. Cook up, my boy. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. No doubt, man. Look, I think he has a chance to be really good this Bane. Again, my objective isn't to be the team that does the experiment to see if he can be. Let him do that somewhere else. Again, Tennessee, I know we did this last year, and I hate to be that guy, right? I hate to ask you again, but can you just do me one more favor? I already owe you, right? But you got one more solid in you, bro. Can you do me a favor and help me out one more time? I promise I won't ask you no more for a little while at least. I can't guarantee you, that I won't ever ask you for another favor, but I won't ask you for nothing else for a while. If you could just do me this huge solid and just take this man off the board. Normally, when I ask for teams to do that in front of us, they usually come through for us. Now, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I think we dodged a bullet with Oladejo last year because they were absolutely going to take him. I don't give a shit what anybody says. They were absolutely going to take him. And he was a UCLA player too. What? Double whammy. He was absolutely going to be a Commander. Titans bailed us out. 3 years ago, we didn't want Drake London. I didn't want Drake London. I won't speak for you. I didn't want Drake London. And I remember a lot of you didn't want him either. he actually turned out to be a damn good receiver in this league. Way better than I thought he was going to be. So I'm guilty as charged. But I didn't want him. I don't regret not wanting him. But he actually turned out to be a lot better than I thought he was going to be. Clearly, he's better than, the guy that we drafted here. So there's that. But Falcons bailed us out. Titans bailed us out last year. I'm asking for you to do me one more solid and bail us out again. So I do feel like it one of those players that you mentioned, Love, Styles, Delane, Bailey, and Rio and I were having a conversation, a brief one last night, where he's like, because I haven't looked at a lot of these mock drafts, I'll be honest with you, because you know what time of year it is. So I try to stay away from all of that stuff. But Rio he's consuming all of these shits, and he was like, yo, a lot of these mock drafts have David Bailey not only falling to us, falling past us. We're not even taking him. And I'm like, it's that time of the year, bruh. Like, for me, and there could be some validity to, we've heard reports and rumors that there's some off the field issues for him. Teams might be doing their due diligence, really diving in deep on this kid, and they might not love what they're finding. But I told you, a lot of times this is the process, right? Remember a few years ago, CJ Stroud started out as, in the conversation for the #1 pick. And then all of a sudden, Will Levis jumped him, and CJ Stroud is even going to be a top 10 pick. I was like, he's either going 1 or 2, guys. Like, what are we doing here? Will Levis is not a first-round pick. I kept telling people that. And sure enough, CJ Stroud went second. Will Levis went in the second round, right? Everything that happens in between is just a bunch of noise. Those first mock drafts that you saw are going to be closer to what ultimately happens than all of the shit that you're going to see throughout this process. There's going to be a couple final mock drafts. DJ is going to do one right before the draft. You're going to get everybody's like final mock draft right before the draft. Those ones are going to be closer to what may happen on draft night, and the ones that started out the process, than anything that you're seeing right now. Again, unless there's some really damning evidence as to David Bailey being this repulsive human, like we saw last year with Pierce Jr., unless there's some of that type of behavior in his background that scare teams away, there's no way this kid is getting past the Browns at 6, okay? Like, I just can't see us having a chance at drafting David Bailey. Honestly, I don't see how he gets past Arizona at 3, if we're being honest with one another. But again, they may decide to go with the offensive tackle. Because again, Arizona, much like, the Jets and some other teams, are positioning themselves for next year's draft at quarterback. The Cardinals are going to start our old friend Jacoby Brissett, a.k.a. Brisket. If you're starting Jacoby Brissett going into the season as your starter, you've traded Kyler Murray or released Kyler Murray, and you're starting Jacoby Brissett, you're waving the white flag before the season starts. So they're basically saying, let's just get all of the ducks in a row. Let's get this offensive line fortified. We already drafted the receiver. We got an elite tight end. Maybe you get the running back this year. Maybe you already feel like you got the running backs because they went out in free agency and got a running back, one of the ones we liked, right, in Tyler Algier. They already have Trey Benson on the roster, so they probably already feel good about their running back position. Fix the offensive line, and then next year you just drop the quarterback in. That could be their thought process. So they take a Maigoa at 3. But Reese Bailey, all those guys feel like they're going to be gone sometime in the first 6 picks. But who knows? That's why the draft is such a beautiful thing, because nobody knows, especially when it's a draft like this. There's knowns, unknowns, known knowns, and known unknowns. Don't start me down that path. Shout out to Samuel L. Jackson, man. Anyway, I digress. Big shout out to Commander Lorian, man. Appreciate you. And with that, we're going to get out of here. So you know what it is. Post up. Take command. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys later on this afternoon. And furthermore, later on tonight. Either way, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. And I will see you guys next time. Peace. Ohio State Pro Day. Big day for the Commanders.